The Knicks might have figured it out. The Knicks didn't just win games 4 and 5, they completely flipped the script on this entire series, and the numbers tell the whole story. Let's start with the scoring. In games 2 and 3, both losses came by just one single point. 1 point. The Hawks won 107 to 106, then 109 to 108. The Knicks couldn't get stops when it mattered, and they couldn't put games away late. Then games 4 and 5 happened. They dropped 114 in game 4, then 126 in game 5. That's 240 total points over 2 games, averaging 120 points per game. That's not a close game kind of team anymore. That's a team that figured something out. The defense is where the real shift happened, though. In those losses, the Hawks scored 107 and 109, consistently over 100, consistently enough to win. In games 4 and 5, the Knicks held them to 98, then 97. That's roughly 10 fewer points allowed per game. And in game 5, the Hawks were shooting just 31% from 3. In game 4, it was even worse, 24% on 10 of 41 attempts. The Knicks were suffocating them from the perimeter. Now let's talk about what was fueling the offense. In game 5, they scored 60 points in the paint. 60. They also got to the free throw line 38 times. That's a physical, inside-out team that was just bullying their way to the basket. And the rebounding numbers are almost hard to believe. The Knicks won the glass 48 to 27 in game 5. That's a plus 21 rebounding margin. They grabbed 40 defensive rebounds alone. When a team's winning the boards by that margin, the other team simply doesn't get second chances. And that's exactly what happened. Jalen Brunson in game 5 was absolutely locked in. 39 points on 15 of 23 shooting, 8 assists, and just 1 turnover. That's elite efficiency on a huge playoff stage. In game 4, Karl Anthony Towns put up a triple-double, 20 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. OG added 22 points and 10 rebounds in that same game. 3 players scored 19 or more points in game 4 alone. That kind of balance, star-level production just wasn't happening earlier in the series. The margin of victory tells the full story. After going down 2-1, losing 2 straight by a single point each, the Knicks came back and won game 4 by 16 and game 5 by 29. That's a combined plus 45-point margin over 2 games. They went from 1 possession losses to double-digit blowouts, and they did it by changing everything. More paint scoring, better rebounding, sharper defense, and their stars showing up when it counts. And the thing is, it all starts with Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson had been held under 40% from the field in 2 games this series. Game 5 was a completely different story. Brunson finished with 39 points, 8 assists, 1 turnover, and shot 15 of 23 from the field. That's 65% shooting. His regular season field goal average is 46.7%, which means he shot nearly 19 percentage points above his season average, and he did it at high volume, in the playoffs, against a defense that had been chasing him all series long. That kind of efficiency at that kind of volume doesn't happen often for a primary ball handler. Let's break down what made those 39 points so impressive. He went 3 of 5 from 3, which is 60% from deep. He was also the driving force behind the Knicks, putting up 60 points in the paint as a team. His ability to get into the lane, draw defenders, and create advantages for his teammates opened up the interior all night. The Knicks shot 57% from the field as a team in this game, and Brunson's shot creation was a massive reason why. When a point guard is operating that efficiently and distributing that effectively, the whole offense runs cleaner. Then there's the assist-to-turnover ratio, 8 assists and just 1 single turnover in 35 minutes. That's an 8-to-1 ratio. For a player who's handling the ball as much as Brunson does, carrying the offensive load as a primary initiator and primary scorer at the same time, 1 turnover is almost unheard of. Most high usage guards in playoff situations are going to give the ball away 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a game. Brunson had one. He was aggressive all night and still didn't give Atlanta anything for free. Now about those 39 points. 17 of them came in the fourth quarter alone. That's 43.6% of his entire point total coming in the final period. The Knicks already had a comfortable lead heading into the fourth, so this wasn't a desperation situation. This was Brunson choosing to keep his foot on the gas when most players ease up. He scored 1.11 points per minute across his 35 minutes of play. Stretch that over 36 minutes, and you're looking at over 40 points per 36. That's superstar level output. The context around this performance matters too. Coming into Game 5, Brunson had been dealing with Dyson Daniels all series. Daniels is long, rangy, and one of the better perimeter defenders in the league. He'd been hounding Brunson and limiting his comfort level throughout the first few games. But when Karl Anthony Towns put up a triple-double in Game 4, Hawks coach Quinn Snyder made an adjustment, moving Daniels onto Towns instead. That gave Brunson room he hadn't seen all series, and he absolutely took advantage of it. In games where he wasn't getting that space, Brunson shot below 40% twice in this series. The moment the defense gave him an inch, he turned it into 39 points on 65% shooting. That's the kind of player he is. Give him any breathing room, and he's going to make you pay. His best scoring games tend to come later in playoff series, and this fits the pattern perfectly. He had 3 straight 40-point games in the first round against Philadelphia in 2024. He dropped 40 points against Detroit in Game 6 last year to close that series out. He had a 39-point, 12-assist performance against Boston in the second round last year to give the Knicks a 3-1 lead. Game 5 against Atlanta now lives in that same category. 39 points in a must-win game, tying Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for 25 career 30-plus point playoff games. That's elite company. The defensive ripple effect of his performance shouldn't be overlooked either, because Brunson controlled the offense so completely, and the Knicks limited their turnovers. Atlanta only scored 4 fast break points all game. When you aren't giving the other team easy transition opportunities, you're forcing them into a half-court grind. And in that grind, the Hawks shot just 31% from 3. CJ McCollum, who dropped 32 points in Game 2, was held to 6 points on 3 of 10 shooting, his lowest output since joining Atlanta back in January. Brunson's offensive control directly affected Atlanta's offensive rhythm. The overall team numbers in Game 5 were dominant. 126 points, 57% from the field, 60 points in the paint, 38 free throw attempts, and a 48-27 rebounding advantage. Brunson led all scorers with 39. OG had 17 points and 10 rebounds, and Towns added 16 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. Brunson was the engine, but everyone was firing. He drew the most defensive attention, created the most advantages, and still finished as the most efficient scorer on the floor. The series, picture after Game 5, tells the full story of what this performance meant. Going into Game 4, the Knicks were down 2 and 1 after 2 one-point losses. They've now won back-to-back games by an average of 22.5 points. Over those 2 games, they've held Atlanta to 42.7% from the field and 27.7% from 3. Brunson's 39-point game was the centerpiece of that shift. The moment the series truly turned, the Knicks lead 3-2 and have a chance to close it out on the road. And it started with Brunson putting together the kind of performance this series had been waiting on. But that reminds me, this video is presented by Prize Picks, a preferred partner of the NBA. The playoffs are here, and I've been using Prize Picks a lot more during these games. It honestly makes everything more interesting, because now I'm not just watching. I actually have a take on how players are going to perform. And if you've never tried it, it's really simple. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if your picks hit, you can cash in. That's it. No complicated setup, no confusion. I've mostly been focusing on NBA player picks during the playoffs, especially with how consistent some of these top guys have been lately. And now with team picks, you can also make picks on game outcomes during the playoffs, which adds even more ways to build your lineups. And what I like is everything is in one place. Whether it's big playoff matchups or key performances, I can build all my lineups right in this Prize Picks app. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, a preferred partner of the NBA. But then we can talk about Towns. In Game 4, Karl Anthony Towns has been one of the best shooting big men in the NBA for years. But Game 4 against the Hawks, he showed everyone he can pass to. Towns finished with 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists. That's a triple-double, his 5th of his entire 11-year career, and his first ever in a playoff game. The Knicks won 114-98, tying the series at 2 games apiece after dropping 2 straight. And Towns was the reason it happened. Let's start with the historical weight of those 10 assists. All 56 of his double-doubles during the regular season were points and rebounds. Not a single one involved assists as the second category. Assists aren't typically part of his game at all. So when he drops 10 of them in a playoff game, that's not just impressive for a center, that's a completely different version of Karl Anthony Towns showing up. He's now the fourth player in Knicks postseason history to record a triple-double, joining Hall of Famers Walt Frazier and Dick McGuire, and teammate Josh Hart. That's the company he's in now. The timing of this performance can't be overstated enough. The Knicks had just lost 2 straight games, both by 1 point. Game 2 went 107 to 106. Game 3 went 109 to 108. They were down 2-1, and their offense had been stagnant late in those games. Then Towns comes out in Game 4 and completely rewires how the offense functions. Instead of running everything through guards in isolation situations, the Knicks started running it through Towns at the hub, and it worked. Those 10 assists weren't just a number. They were the mechanism that changed the entire offensive structure. When a 7-foot center is facilitating at that level, it creates passing angles that defenses simply aren't built to handle. Help defenders have to account for the big man's scoring threat, but when he's also the one making decisions and finding open teammates, rotations break down and shots open up. The result was 3 players scoring 19 or more points in this game. That kind of balanced, distributed scoring doesn't happen when the offense is isolation heavy. It happens when the ball is moving, and Towns was the engine making it move. His 20 points were efficient and controlled. He didn't need to force his shot or take over as the primary scorer. He stayed within the flow of the game, hit what was available, and let his playmaking do the heavy lifting. He was operating closer to his projected scoring expectation coming in, but what he did beyond scoring is what made the performance so special. Scoring 20 while also dishing out 10 assists and grabbing 10 boards is a level of complete control that very few players at any position can pull off. The rebounding mattered just as much. 10 boards anchored the Knicks' defensive possessions and kept Atlanta off the offensive glass. The Hawks were held to 98 points in this game, and they shot just 24.4% from 3, going 10 of 41 from deep. That's an abysmal number. When you control the defensive glass the way Towns did, you're eliminating second chance opportunities and forcing opponents into one-shot possessions all night. That's exactly what happened. His third quarter stretch was one of the most important runs of the entire series. At a point when Jalen Brunson was off the floor, Towns took over as both the primary scorer and primary playmaker for the unit on the court. The Knicks didn't just survive that stretch without their lead guard, they maintained control. That's the mark of a player who can carry a unit independently. It wasn't just that Towns was good with Brunson, it's that he was the guy when Brunson wasn't out there. Think about the direct point influence of his performance. 20 points scored himself, plus 10 assists that generated offense for teammates. In standard efficiency terms, those 10 assists likely contributed somewhere in the range of 20 to 25 additional points for the Knicks. That means Towns was directly involved in roughly 40 or more points of their 114 total. That's more than a third of the team's scoring output tied to one player's decision-making and production in a single game. The matchup adjustments he forced were significant too. Jalen Johnson, one of Atlanta's key offensive pieces, finished with just 14 points on 4 of 12 shooting. The Knicks' interior presence and defensive structure made life difficult for Atlanta's scorers all night. Towns' size and positioning contributed to that, deterring drives and affecting rotations in ways that don't always show up cleanly in a box score, but show up clearly in the final score. OG had 22 points and 10 rebounds in this game. That kind of output from a wing scorer doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens when the defense has to account for a 7-foot center who can score and pass, and when the ball is being moved efficiently to create high-quality shots. Towns' 10 assists were the direct cause of the offensive balance the Knicks showed in Game 4 compared to the earlier games in the series. The contrast between the first 3 games and Game 4 is stark. In Games 2 and 3, the Knicks were relying on late-game execution and falling just short. They couldn't close out one-point games. The offense was guard-dominant, isolation-heavy, and volatile in clutch moments. Then Towns goes out in Game 4 and the whole system shifts. The Knicks built a lead, maintained it, and won by 16 points. There were no final possession situations, no nail-biting finishes, just controlled, dominant basketball from start to finish. Before Game 4, the Knicks were down 2-1, having lost 2 agonizing games they probably should have won. After Towns' triple-double performance, the series was even at 2-2. Momentum had completely shifted, and the Knicks had discovered a new offensive identity. Running the offense through Towns at the hub created movement, balance, and efficiency that simply wasn't there in the first 3 games. It wasn't just that he had a great game, it's that his great game fundamentally changed how this team was playing basketball. 5 career triple-doubles in 11 years, and Towns chose to save his first postseason, one for the moment the Knicks needed it most. 20 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, a 16-point win, and a series tied up heading home. Every single one of those numbers mattered. But then we can talk about OG for the whole series. OG said after Game 1 that he needed to get better in everything. 5 games into this series, the numbers say he's done exactly that. Through 5 games against the Hawks, OG is averaging 20 points, 9 rebounds, and 1.4 steals per game, while shooting 54.2% from 3. Let those numbers sink in for a second. During the regular season, he averaged 16.7 points and 5.2 rebounds. That's an increase of 3.3 points per game and 3.8 rebounds per game in the playoff. He's not just maintaining his regular season level, he's significantly exceeding it, and he's doing it on both ends of the floor. Start with that 3-point percentage, because 54.2% from 3 in a playoff series is genuinely absurd. League playoff averages sit somewhere around 36 to 37%. His career average from deep is around 38%. He's shooting 54.2. That's not a hot stretch. That's a player operating at a completely different efficiency level than what he normally does. And the volume is there too. He's not just making threes on 1 or 2 attempts per game, he's taking real shots and converting them at an elite rate. What does that kind of 3-point shooting do for the Knicks offensively? It means defenders can't leave him. They have to stay glued, which opens driving lanes for Jalen Brunson and creates interior space for Karl Anthony Towns. When a wing player is shooting over 50% from 3, the entire offensive structure benefits. Brunson's penetration becomes easier because help defenders can't sag off OG. Towns' post touches become cleaner because weak side help is occupied. OG's efficiency isn't just his own stat line, it's a multiplier for everyone around him. Now let's get into the individual game performances, because both games, 4 and 5, were outstanding. In Game 4, he put up 22 points on 9 of 16 shooting, 3 of 6 from 3, with 10 rebounds and a game-high plus 19 plus-minus rating. That plus-minus number is significant. It means when OG was on the floor, the Knicks outscored the Hawks by 19 points. That's the largest impact rating of anyone on the team in that game. And on the defensive end, he was matched up primarily against Jalen Johnson. He held Johnson to 4 of 12 shooting, 33%. When OG was the primary defender in that game, opponents shot 5 of 15 total, also 33%. He wasn't just containing one player, he was affecting every shot attempt in his vicinity. Game 5 was more of the same. 17 points, 10 rebounds, 2 steals, and 35 minutes of consistent two-way basketball. He now has double-doubles in back-to-back games, something he wasn't doing at anywhere near this rate during the regular season, where he averaged just 5.2 boards. 9 rebounds per game in this series represents a near doubling of his regular season rebounding output. In Game 5, the Knicks won the rebounding battle 48-27 overall. OG's 10 boards were a significant piece of that advantage. The defensive impact across the full series might be the most underrated part of his performance. The Hawks scored over 100 points in Games 2 and 3. In Games 4 and 5, they were held to 98 and then 97. That's back-to-back sub-100 performances, and the last time Atlanta had been held under 100 before this stretch was March 20th. OG's been one of the main reasons why. He's guarding primary wings, switching across positions, and providing consistent help defense. The Hawks' offensive efficiency collapsed in the games where he was most locked in defensively. What makes this especially impressive is that it's not selective. He hasn't just shown up in the wins. Even in Games 2 and 3, the 2 one-point losses, he was producing. His consistency across all 5 games is what separates his series from the fluctuating performances you see from other players. He hasn't had a game where he disappeared or went cold. He's been a reliable 20 points and 9 rebounds every single night, regardless of the final score. That kind of floor-raising consistency is exactly what playoff teams need from secondary stars. The argument has been made that through 5 games of this series, OG has been the best Knick, and the numbers support that case. Brunson had his massive 39-point Game 5 performance, and Towns had his historic triple-double in Game 4. But OG has been excellent across every single game, not just 1 or 2. 20 points per game, 9 rebounds per game, 54.2% from 3, double-doubles in consecutive games, game high, plus-minus in Game 4. The argument isn't ridiculous, it's actually pretty compelling. His regular season scoring average was 16.7 points. He's at 20 in the playoffs. His regular season rebounding average was 5.2. He's at 9 in the playoff. His career, Three-point percentage is around 38%. He's at 54.2 in this series. Across every major statistical category, he's elevated his game when it matters most. The two-way production is what truly separates him. Scoring 20 points per game is impressive by itself. Grabbing 9 rebounds per game from the wing is impressive by itself. Shooting 54% from three is impressive by itself. Holding primary defensive assignments to 33% shooting is impressive by itself. Doing all 4 of those things in the same playoff series at the same time is genuinely rare. Towns called him one of the best two-way players in the NBA. Looking at these numbers, it's hard to argue otherwise. When the Knicks were down 2-1 and needed to flip the series, OG put up 22 and 10 in Game 4 and 17 and 10 in Game 5. Combined plus-minus across those 2 games was enormous. He was on the floor, doing work both times. The Knicks needed a result. His two-way output in Games 4 and 5 correlates directly with the Knicks, holding the Hawks under 100 in consecutive games for the first time since March and winning both games by double digits. The series turnaround from down 2-1 to up 3-2 has multiple causes. Brunson's 39-point explosion, Towns' historic triple-double. But OG was producing at a high level before, during, and after those individual moments. He's been the most consistent performer in the series from wire to wire. 20 points, 9 rebounds, 54.2% from three, and elite defense across 5 playoff games. Whatever he meant when he said he needed to get better in everything after Game 1, these numbers suggest he meant it. Overall, though, this Knicks team was on the ropes. Down 2-1, having let 2 games slip away by the slimmest margin possible, the questions were real. Could they hold a lead? Could they close? Did they have enough when it mattered most? Games 4 and 5 answered every single one of those questions. What's happened over the last 2 games isn't just a comeback, it's a statement. The Knicks didn't squeak by. They didn't survive. They dominated. They walked into both games and imposed their will from start to finish. And that's a completely different identity than what this team was showing in the first 3 games of this series. The version of the Knicks that showed up in games 4 and 5 looks nothing like the version that was on the wrong end of 2 straight 1-point losses. The biggest shift has been how they've controlled games from start to finish. Earlier in the series, they were reactive. They'd build leads and let them evaporate. They'd get to the 4th quarter with a chance to win and couldn't execute when it counted. That changed. The last 2 games haven't required any clutch heroics, any final possession miracles, or any desperate shot making. They've built leads, grown them, and closed out games with authority. That's not luck. That's a team that figured something out about itself. The individual performances have been the kind that define playoff runs. Jalen Brunson stepped into Game 5 as a player with something to prove after being held in check by elite defense for stretches of this series. What he delivered was one of the most complete offensive performances in his playoff career, a game that now sits alongside the best individual showings he's ever had in the postseason. He's made that list before, and adding to it in a pivotal Game 5 at home is exactly the kind of moment that separates good players from great ones. Karl-Anthony Towns did something in Game 4 that nobody had seen from him in over a decade of professional basketball. He completely rewired how the Knicks play offense, and he did it at the precise moment the team needed someone to step into a different role. That's not a small thing. Asking a player to fundamentally change how he engages with the game in a playoff situation and then watching him execute it at a historic level, that's the kind of performance that gets talked about for a long time. Towns didn't just have a good game, he changed the series. And then there's OG, who might be the most important piece of everything that's happened. His consistency across all 5 games is something that other star performances can't match by definition. Brunson and Towns each had one defining game. OG has been elite every single night, in the wins and in the losses, on offense and on defense. He's been the constant, the player whose production never fluctuated, regardless of what was happening around him. There's a strong case to be made that he's been the best player in this series for the Knicks, and the numbers back that argument up clearly. What makes this team dangerous heading into a potential Game 6 closeout is that all 3 of those performances aren't flukes. Brunson has proven over multiple playoff runs that he elevates when the stage gets bigger. Towns has proven he's capable of reshaping his game in real time. OG has proven he's one of the most reliable two-way players in the league when healthy and locked in. The Knicks aren't riding one guy, they're riding 3. and those three are all operating at or near the peak of what they're capable of. The series as a whole has told an interesting story. Atlanta was scrappy, competitive, and gave the Knicks everything they could handle in the first 3 games. The Hawks didn't roll over. They stole home court with a fourth quarter comeback in Game 2 and followed it up with another 1-point win in Game 3. They made this series hard, but when the Knicks made adjustments and their stars responded, the gap between these two teams became undeniable. Games 4 and 5 weren't close. They weren't particularly stressful. They were controlled, wire-to-wire wins by a team that finally looked like itself. The collective growth across those 2 games, in every phase of the game, tells you that what happened wasn't circumstantial. Defenses don't just collapse by accident. Offenses don't suddenly become that balanced and efficient without real execution behind it. The Knicks made Atlanta's offense uncomfortable. They attacked the paint with physicality, they dominated the glass, and they converted at an elite rate. That's a complete team performance, not a hot shooting night. Now they have a chance to close the series on the road in Game 6. Everything they've built over the last 2 games, the confidence, the identity, the momentum, gets tested again on someone else's floor. But this is a group that's been through adversity repeatedly. They lost 2 games they probably should have won. They fell behind in the series, and instead of fracturing, they found another level. That's not something every team is capable of doing. The first 3 games of this series showed a Knicks team searching for consistency. The last 2 showed a team that found it. Whether they close this out in Game 6 or are pushed to Game 7, what's been demonstrated over the past 2 games is that when Brunson, Towns, and OG are all operating at this level simultaneously, this team is genuinely difficult to beat. The rest of the Eastern Conference has been watching. They've seen what this group looks like when everything is clicking. Games 4 and 5 were a preview of what this Knicks team is capable of when they're right. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.